So, namaste everyone. Welcome to Advaita Vedanta Satsang House. So, with the new schedule, we are meeting Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 6:30 a.m. IST for those who listen to the replays. And we are continuing with chapter 5. And the replays of chapter 3 is being played. Thanks to Yash, we are having that on weekdays at 8:30 p.m. IST. And we have finished, I think, 14 rooms or 15 rooms, I think. So coming back to today, today Vindoji is going to offer us the 7th class. I'll close the chat and hand raising when he's offering the class, after which we'll open up the channels for Q&A. In the meantime, I'll also paste the links for the replays from other channels like Advaita Retold, the Apple Podcast, Spotify link, including the book penned by Artemisia on Vindoji's Insights into Advaita, titled The Imaginary Door. So with that brief note of introduction, over to Bindoji. Thank you very much, Bindoji.
Thank you, Prakash. Thank you, Artemisia, Srini, Venkat, Jasi, and those who are likely to join later. Namaste and Hari Om. My invocations. Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartribhyo Vamsharashidhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyaha Shruti Smriti Purana Mahalayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Padam Shankaram Loga Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutravashikritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murtibeda Vivagine Vyomavatyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The Gita Dhyana Slokam. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudramarutaha Stvanvandi Divyaistavai Vedai Sankapadakramo Upanishadai Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavastita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yogino Yasyantam Na Vidussura Suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. Oh. In the last class, we saw that Brahmani Adaya Karmani Sangam Tyakta Karodyaha Na Lipyate Sa Papena Padma Patramivambasa. So that was a methodology where Krishna has mentioned that for a Karma Yogin, how he can activate or achieve the state of, akartrutvam, abhoktrutvam, even though he may not have achieved the state of jnana nishtha. So what he does is that he is in the yoga process, he is surrendering every action, sarva karmani, brahmani adaya. He is seeing it as a brahma karma samadhi, brahmarpanam brahma havihi. We saw that verse in detail. Not only that, he also goes through the activity of sangam tyaktva. That is attachment or, link to the not only action. When he is surrendering the action, he is not expecting the results of the action also. At the same time, he is in the thick and thin of the world. Because that is the place where all karmas are supposed to take place. And the actions can take place only in such a place. So he is in the vyavahara. At the same time, he knows the truth that all actions are happening only due to Brahman. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavihi Brahmagno Brahmanapat. That. Therefore, when he is performing his day-to-day activities, whether it is as a brahmachari, grihastha, or vanaprastha, sannyasi, whatever may be that, or even in the Chaturvarnyam, which Krishna said that, Chaturvarnyam maya srishta guna karma vibhagasha. So even those actions, whether he is in the Chaturvarnya, whichever category we be, there is nothing which is left. Because in the 8th and 9th verse, Krishna said that, Pasyan shrunvan sprasan jigran asnan gachan swapan shasan pralapan visrajan grannan unmishan nimishan napi indriyani indriyarteshu vartante. So all actions are due to the indriyas getting engaged in the objects of indriya or vishaya, what we call it as vishaya. So this action of indriyas entanglement with the objects of vishaya, indriyas, sense organs and sense objects, their interaction, he is not owning it. He is seeing them as activities in Brahman and surrendering them as a appearance in Brahman. That is exactly what is Brahmani Adaya. And when this action is being seen as Indriyan Indriyateshu Vartante. And then when he is seeing them as activities of consciousness in consciousness. Indriyas are also consciousness. Vishayas are also consciousness. So when he is seeing them as consciousness in action, he is not associating with them and he is stating the attitude of a sakshi. Now, the lotus leaf example is important in that because like untouched by the activities of Brahman, he should not forget that he is also part of Brahman. That is why this example of lotus leaf is so important because it is born in water, thriving in water, perishing in water, and yet untouched by the water. The appearance of the individuality is in Brahman. The individual thrives due to Brahman because unless Brahman or Atman is performing or showing its swabhava, there is no individuality, no indriyas, no indriya vishayas. So all of them are to be understood that even the feeling what we are having as individuals is a swabhava of Brahman. Only when we are forgetting about it or the ignorance takes over and when we feel the segregation or a separation from Brahman, the individuality becomes what we experience as human being separately with, body, mind, intellect, as operations, and ahankara and mamakara will come. But when we are in the Brahma Karma Samadhi, we are seeing everything as Brahma. That is why the example of lotus leaf in water makes it important that we are not separate from even the lotus leaf or the lotus stem or the lotus flower is nothing but the same water in which it has come from. It remains in water as appearing to be separate as lotus. but perishes back into the water. The temporary existence of the lotus and the lotus leaf appearing to be separate from water cannot exist without the water being present in the every molecule of the lotus leaf and the lotus flower. So when untouched by Brahman is a vision of a person who is seeing the lotus leaf as separate from water. But from the point of view of the lotus and the lotus leaf, the knowledge of water, the existence requirement for it, the water for its own existence is very clear. Therefore, even if appearing to be in the water, untouched by water for the outsider or for the third person, from the point of view of the lotus leaf, it has the knowledge that it is nothing but a different appearance of the water. Now Krishna is expanding on the same theme in the next verse when he says, Kayena manasa buddhya kevalai indriyairapi yogina karma kurvandi sangam tektva atma shuddhaye. Now, this verse is a progression from the previous verse where we have to understand that what is the four aspects through which actions are being done by the individual. Kayena manasa buddhya kevalai indriyarapi. Kayena means by body. Manasa means by mind. Buddhya, intellect. And indriyairapi, kevalai indriyairapi, even by the bare senses alone. When he mentioned that activities, Paschan Shrunvan, etc. in the 8th and 9th verse, he listed them. But what he did here is that he categorized them, the same activities, into four groups. That is done by the gross body, that is the Kayena, the subtle mental level at the Manasa, Buddhya at the very, fine, sukshma activity of the mind itself as intellect. And then the link between the world outside and this complex of body, mind, intellect, that can happen only through the indriyas. Therefore, kevalayir indriyaravi. Yogina karma kurvanti. The yogis means the karma yogis. Karma kurvanti. They continue to perform in the world of empirical activities. Sangam tektva. By abandoning the attachment, they perform the actions for purpose of purification of the self. Now this Atma Shuddhaye, for the purpose of purification of the self, is something which we need to be discussed because the other aspects are easily understandable. I don't have to spend much time on that. So the complete enumeration of instruments at the four levels, Kayena, Manasa, Buddhya, Indriya, with an invariant condition as Sangam Tektva. That is the must. Yogina Kurvanti, all the yogis, collective action, irrespective of what level each one of the karma yogis are. then is the purpose which is being mentioned as the Atma Shuddhaya. So if we look at the structural overview of the verse, the previous verse gave the inner orientation of the Karma Yogi, Brahmani Adaya Sangam Tyakta, and the result as Nalipyate. In this structure of the 11th verse, give the instrumental analysis. Earlier it was analytical, here it's an instrumental analysis. What means does the yogi act and for what purpose? The verse performs a complete dissection of Karma Yoga into 4 instruments, that is Sthula, Sukshma, and the levels of Indriyas, leading to Atma Shuddhi. So the Kayena by body, Manasa by in mind, and Buddhya, you may have the doubt about here, why the Manasa and Buddhi is being separated. See, Buddhi is at the highest of the inner instrument. The faculty of determinative judgment, Adhyavasaya. The one that decides and the decision leads to resolve and the resolve leading into discrimination. That is why Adhyavasaya or the Buddhi. Sometimes called Atma's immediate Ubay. The Buddhi is supposed to be the closest to the self. And only when the Buddhi is detached from the mind, the ignorance can be eliminated. The Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, which was mentioned in the 2nd chapter, 41st verse, the single-pointed resolute of the intellect. Therefore, it need to be separated from the mind. Therefore, Krishna says that Kayena Manasa Buddhya. Buddhya Karma Kurvanti. So when the action is resolved through the intellect, acting through the Buddhi, all the actions, it refers to the intellectual actions, like the Swadhyaya, Vichara, planning, discrimination, from the Nitya and Anitya, aspects of our discrimination. These are the required when the yogi dedicates of the discriminative intelligence for Atma Shuddhi. Therefore, the vichara or the karma done by the intellect will become an act of karma yoga only when it is Atma Shuddhaye for the purpose of dedication of. Otherwise, intellect is doing so many activities like teaching, planning, etc. That doesn't give any rise to Atma Shuddhi. Only when it is used as a discriminative intelligence for the purpose of Atma Shuddhi or the purification of Atma, it becomes a Karma Yoga. And Indriya Ravi, bare senses, the Tattvavid, na eva kinchit karomi, has been given in the list of items in the 8th and 9th verse. The Tattvavid recognizes at the Paramarthika level that the senses act on themselves. Indriyani indriyashu vartante. The Karma Yogi practices treating the senses as kevalaihi, as bare instruments. Not my senses acting for my purpose. There is no individuality or ego-related activities. Simply sense instruments functioning in their natural domain. This attitude is what is maintained by the Karma Yogi. That is why The word Kevalai Indriye Ravi is used by Krishna. The pure isolated knowledge of Brahman that is moksha is Kevala Jnana. So the Kevalata of the senses here in the Vyavaharika foreshadowing the Kevalata of Jnana leads to the purity through isolation of the ego contamination into the operations of the senses. The word api here, even the most peripheral, externally directed actions, those performed through the bare senses, all of them are included in the Karma Yoga. No action is too small or external to be performed, which include the Unmishan Nimishan Napi, blinking of the eyes in the 8th and 9th verse. So that can also be Kevalai Indriye Ravi. So that the yogi sees that even the action of the eyelids opening and closing is for the purpose of the vision of the eye to be engaged in the objects of vision, not for the purpose of my vision. So who are the yogi here? Shankaracharya identifies them as karma yogins, those who are in the pravritti marga. They have not arrived at the jnana nishta yet, but engaged in the preparatory discipline of desireless ego-free action as a sakshi. They are different from Tattvavit and the Sagunopasaka. Because the Jnani Tattvavit, who has transcended even the framework of practice, he has no activity that, because Tattvavit is associating and identifying himself as the Akartrutva, Abhoktartva. In the case of the Sagunopasaka who acts on the Pala Bheksha, they have got a result expectation. Therefore, he is also not a Karma Yogi. Whereas a Karma Yogi is in the middle group. Those who have taken up Karma Yoga as a sadhana with the full understanding its purpose is for eradication of the ignorance, Atma Shuddhaya. They are the one who are doing the Karma Kurvanti. The Karma means all universal Karma, not selective to ritual or prescribed actions alone. Sangam Tyaktva, by, abandoning the attachment when you are doing karma, the actions also can attach yourself, or the fruits of action also can be, binding you. But when you are doing that Sangam Tyaktva, by abandoning the I-ness and my-ness in the actions and the fruits of action, it becomes a purifying action. And purifying action, Atma Shuddhaya, the single most important term in this verse, one of the most important aspect for Karma Yoga. Atma Shuddhaya, for the purification of self. Now the self itself is pure, Nitya Shuddha. So then what is this prayojana or the benefit of the Atma Shuddhaya? We need to analyze it deeply, because it is not simple and meaning what we have to take. So what is Atma Shuddhi? At the Vyavaharika level, purification of Antakarana, the inner organs, which include the Mana, Buddhi, Ahankara, Chitta, from the Mala, impurity of Raga, Dvesha, Lobha, Moha. which we discussed in detail in the third chapter. At the sadhana vichara level, rendering the chitta fit to receive and hold Atma Jnana, the prerequisite before Sakshatkara, or the knowledge becoming, abiding in the knowledge, which is of a Tattvavit. That is at the sadhana level. At the Vyavaharika level, it is for removing the I-ness and minus, my, etc. At the sadhana level, the I and my is no more important for the person. The karma yogi is more attuning himself to the knowledge of Atman, that Brahma Sakshatkara, that Aparokshanubhuti. But when it matures and Atma Shuddhi takes place, the Atman itself is ever pure, Nitya Shuddha. Therefore, there is Atma Shuddhi is for the removal of appearance of impurity in the form of Avarana Nivritti. Not purification which is there, which is already pure, need not be made pure. But there is an apparent impurity. So this three-level understanding resolves the potential confusion. If Atman is Nitya Shuddha, eternally pure, what is there to purify? Shankaracharya's answer is from the Advaitic paradox of sadhana. Impurity is not in the Atman. It is in the Upadhi. Upadhi is what? Andakarana. That is why in this verse, the mana, buddhi and indriya and kaya, all the four have been lifted because they are the upadhi for the karma yoga. Atman is not either in the body, the mind or the intellect or in the indriya. So the light of Atman or the Atma Jyoti can illuminate the Andakarana without distortions of Raga, Dvesha and Mala. Is the Atma Shuddhi what is being referred here? The analogy of mirror covered with dust, which does not reflect clearly, not because the light has changed, but because the reflecting surface has become impure. Cleaning the mirror is the Atma Shuddhi what is being referred, Andakarana Shodhana, or the mirror being cleansed, so that the light is allowed, Atma Shuddhi, through the same instruments which had the raga, dveshama, etc., the likes, dislike, etc., at the individual level, andakarana level. Therefore, the body and the indriyas were tuned to the raga and dvesha. But when the karma yogi surrenders them in Brahmani Adaya Sangam Tyaktva, knowing that as a Brahma Karma Samadhi and not developing the attachment and aversion, that leads to the Atma Shuddhi. Atma Shuddhi as a bridge to Jnana. The word Atma Shuddhaye, for the purpose of Atma Shuddhi, is an explicit statement of Karma Yogi's role for moksha sadhana. That is the link between the bridge as a bridge to Atma Shuddhi. Karma Yoga leads to Atma Shuddhi and Atma Shuddhi leads to Jnana Nishta and Jnana Nishta leads to Brahma Sakshatkara or Aparokshanubhuti which is the moksha. So this is the complete securological chain encoded in a single dative Atma Shuddhaya. Karma Yoga is not the final instrument. Atma Shuddhi is not moksha, but Atma Shuddhi is the necessary and sufficient preparation for the jnana to arise, which is the moksha. This is Shankaracharya's anti-samuchaya, where he says the karma cannot lead, karma is not moksha and cannot be simultaneously. Karma yoga's prayojana is only at the Atma Shuddhi level, and it doesn't give moksha directly. Moksha comes from jnana. Therefore, the Atma Shuddhaye for the karma yogi enables the purification of the instrument, after which the jnana arises. The two, the karma yoga and jnana, are therefore sequential, not simultaneously. The four instruments for the philosophical analysis: body, the for physical action, is at the gross level, stula. Mind, manas, at the sankalpa vikalpa, mental action level, projection and imagination, is again at the sukshma level. Buddhi, at the intellect, at the discriminative level, adhyavasaya, is the highest, yet it is in the sukshma level or the subtle level of the body. Indriyas, or the senses, are perpetual active functions which is connecting the subtle and the gross for the interface. These four cover the complete range of human instruments of action, from the grossest body level to the subtlest of the buddhi level, and indriyas acting the interface between the gross and the subtle. So when it is said sangam tyaktva api, at the entry level, no actions at any level of the human instrument is excluded from the domain of karma yoga. It is not the Vaidika karmas alone what is being referred here. So when Krishna says that kaya, mana, buddhi, indriya, it is for every activity. That is why in the 8th and 9th, all activities, irrespective of whether they are meant for the Vedic actions or our daily actions, he has not segregated it. So this verse becomes the definition for the karma yogi's complete activity. It is the yogi who in the karma yoga practitioners, by what? Kayena manasa buddhya kevalai indriye. All the four instruments. How? Sangam tyaktva. By complete relinquishment of attachment. There is no sense that I am the doer, I am even the witness of that, none of that. There is no I when it comes to Sangam Tyaktva. And how he is karma kurvanti, performs all actions, because he sees the body in action, he sees the mind in action, he sees the intellect in action, he sees the interface of the sense organs between the gross and subtle, everything. But he is developing the Atma Shuddhaye. Why? He is keeping saying that I am Kevala Tebhyo Vilakshana Sakshi Chinmatroham Sadashivam. That is the attitude with which he is in action. The Bhashya is just only 3 sentences. Kayena dehayena manasa buddhya kecha kevalai mamatva varjitaihi. Mamatva varjitai means body, mind and intellect, etc. Divide of the sense of mind. Ishwaraya eva karma karomi na mama phalaya. Iti mamatva buddhi shunyehi indriyehi rapi. Even by the senses free from the notion of ownership, thinking, I perform actions only for Ishvara, by the dedication, not for myself, my own result. The Kevala Shabdaha Kayadibihi api pratyegam sambadhyate. Sarva vyapareshu mamata varjanaya. The word only, Kevalai, api, is connected separately with each one of them, body, mind, intellect, indriya, for the exclusion of possessiveness of all activities. Yoginaha karmani karma kurvanti sangam tyaktva phala vishayam atma shuddhaye sattva shuddhaye ityartha. The yogis perform of actions, act abandoning attachment to results for the purification of the self. That is the purification of the mind. Tasmat tatra eva tava adhikaraha iti kuru karma eva. Therefore, your eligibility lies only in that. Hence, perform the action alone. The next verse, Yasmatcha yuktaha karma phalam tyaktva shantimapnoti nashtikim ayukta kama karena ayukta kama karena phale sakte nibadhyate. Yuktaha karma phalam tyaktva shantimapnoti nashtikim. Integrated one. Having abandoned the fruits of action, attains the ultimate peace. Yuktaha, the integrated one, Naishtikim, karma phalam tyaktva shantim apnoti. Karma phalam means the fruits of action. Tyaktva, abandoning that. Shantim apnoti, attains the ultimate peace. The second line, ayuktaha kamakarena phale sakto nibadhyate. The unintegrated one, ayuktaha, kamakarena, driven through the desires, actions, clinging to the fruit of action. Phale saktaha means clinging to the fruits of action. Nibadhyate is bound by that activities. So the two subjects, two conditions and two results. Yuktaha, ayuktaha are the two subjects. Tyaktuha, saktaha are the two conditions. Shanti mapnoti is one result. Nibadhyate is the other result. Presenting the entire Karma Yoga teaching in binary form. Yuktaha, the means the one who is established in the yoga. And he, Shanti mapnoti, he reaches the Shanti, achieves Shanti. Karma phalam tyaktva, he is abandoning the fruits of action. Therefore, Shanti mapnoti. Shanti is the, cessation of agitation, peace, or the ultimate level, chitta prasada, at the psychological level. At the sadhana level, he is antakarana prasanna. His inner mind is settled, stillness of the antakarana. At the paramarthika level, Brahma, the Shanti is the Swarupa of Brahma itself, or Atma Shanti. In this, Shanto ayam Atma. In the Mandukya Upanishad, we have studied that. So the Shanti obtained by the Yuktaha, means the Karma Yogi, who has attained the Nishta, by Karma Phala Tyaga, by result of the, Atma Shuddhi, attains the purification of the natural Shanti, Prasanna Chittatma. The word Naishtiki is pertaining to Nishta, is the ultimate peace. The adjective it's in the form of an adjective which is used here. Naishtikim Shanti, as for the peace. The Naishtiki is an adjective. The peace rooted in Nishta is not an ordinary tranquility, but an ultimate unshakable peace that has grounded or established or abiding in the Brahman itself. So the Naishtiki Nishta, which is referred here, indicates the Sthitaprajna's firm abidance in the wisdom, or the Jnana Nishta, or establishment in the knowledge, or Brahmanishta, established in Brahman. And here, Naishtaki as a Brahmacharya, lifelong ultimate abidance in Brahman. Therefore, the Naishtikim Shanti thus refers the peace that has Brahman as its foundation. Not a peace that comes and goes with circumstances, but a permanent abiding peace. The eternal unchanging Brahman, the nature of which is the eternal peace. Shantam Shivam Advaitam. We heard this in the 7th verse. So the Naishtiki Shanti is pointing towards the moksha as per Shankaracharya here. Not as a preliminary peace, but as a peace that is identical with Brahman. The Brahma Nirvana, which was mentioned in the 24th and 24th verse, Krishna will mention that in the following verses. Brahma Nirvana Madhigacchati. So the Yuktaha, the Karma Yogi who has established himself after having Karma Phala Tyaga, or after having, abandoning the fruits of action, he gets abiding in the Brahma Nirvana. Shantim Apnoti. See, the word Apnoti is used only in the case of Atma or Brahman attainment. But the true meaning of the word Apnoti is pervasiveness, to pervade. It can also mean to reach, to obtain, but it is the all-reaching state of consciousness or peace of Atman, which is being mentioned here by Shanti Mapnodi, is the same one which was mentioned in the Chandogya Upanishad also, where, Yatrana Paschadi Anyat Chunodi Anyat Vijanati. Sarvam Apnoti Sarvashaha. That was the mentioned there in the Chandogya Upanishad. Sarvam Apnoti. He pervades everything. So in the Karma Yoga, Sarvam Apnoti and Shanti Mapnoti is identical. He is seeing the nature of Brahman in all action. That is why the Brahma Karma Samadhi is what is being done by the Karma Yogi, is leading to the Jnana, which is the Brahma Jnana Apnoti. So the method through which a karma yogi can do the Atma Shuddhi or the internal purification and arrive at the moksha as a sequential order of karma yoga, jnana, and karma yoga will lead to jnana when you do the sangam tyaktva, when abandoning the fruits of action and the attachment towards the action itself. You should not be even attached to the action, because Pashyan Shrunvan Shruvan Shruvan, all those things, Indriyani Indriyarteshu Vartande, Iti Matva. When you know that all these things are but the interface between in the sense organs and the sense objects, as the swabhava of them, or the nature of the things. And there is nothing me or mine to do in that, whether you have the me or mine or you don't have it. Things, when it is happening, it is not due to the I-ness or the feeling of mine. They are acting out of their own nature. Prakriti Jair Gunairhi. We learned this earlier, that Prakriti Gunas are the reason which the Indriyas and the Indriya Vishayas are interacting. Not because I am acting or it is mine. But what happens if you do not understand that? Ayuktaha, the opposite of a karma yogi, who is unyoked, means unintegrated. The exact antithesis of yukta, the one who lacks the inner integration of sangantyakta. The ayuktaha is not necessarily immoral or malicious. He may be perfectly competent, even a virtuous worldly person, but he acts without the inner orientation of karma yoga, because he lacks brahmani adhana, grounding in the action in Brahman, sangam tyakta, which is the relinquishment of the attachment, karma phala tyaga, abandonment of the fruits of action. Even you think that you are a virtuous, wise and perfectly competent worldly person doing all that. This is exactly the reason why even, a activity where there is an ego that I am surrendering my actions to the Lord, at the feet of the Lord. If there is a feeling that I am surrendering it or I am offering to the Lord, the I-ness is the reason why the sangam tyaktva doesn't happen. The relinquishment of attachment. Therefore, there will be, when there is no relinquishment of that attachment, the fruit of action, attachment towards that karma phala, tyaga doesn't take place. That is why the ayuktaha becomes the ordinary samsari. He may be a virtuous person and he may be functioning through the same four instruments of kaya, mana, buddhi, indriya, attached. But the ego of ownership and result expectation, the desire-driven motivation, they are all operating in full force. Why? Kama karena. Kama kara. Kama is desire, longing, attachment. Kara means doing, causing, or it's driven by desire. Kama karena. It's a compound word. A desire-driven actions, impelled by the kama, is the mechanism of the bondage. So kamakara is the, a compound word which we will do a diagnostic analysis of that. What is actually the kamakara? Kama is desire, the wanting. The force or the motive force behind all activities. Whether it is Paschan Shrunna, Inspiration Shrapna, all the activities which are listed in the 8th and 9th verse. Kara means the force derived from the kama, the action that flows from the desire. So the desire is the motive force and the action flows due to that. So kamakara is a action that is constituted by desire, not accompanied by desire, but driven and defined by it. So the instrumental kamakarena by means of desire means identifies as the operative mechanism for bondage. That is why nibadhyate, it is binding force. So the binding force is rooted in the desire. And when the desire, the force of desire impels the actions, and the actions are binding, becoming the binding actions. Where is the binding taking place? In the phale, in the fruit. Because the actions are driven by the desire. So you have to visualize it. The desire driven actions with the fruit of action in the target. So the actions are directed toward the fruits of action. Because I need the fruit of action. I am interested in the fruit of action. My attachment is in the fruit of action. So the actions becomes directed toward the fruit of action and becomes attached, and it is not leaving that. This is exactly what was given in the second verse, second chapter, where it was mentioned, Sangat samjayate kama. The attachment develops the desire kama. Kamat krodho vijayate. And when that fruit of action doesn't come the way I desire or I am expecting it, that becomes the krodha. That gives rise to the krodha in me. Krodhat bhavati sammoha. When I am anger, my direction has lost what way I should act. It becomes sammoha, means I become a delusional person. Sammoha bhavati buddhi bhramsha. My intellect or the discriminative power is lost by the intellect. Buddhinashat pranasyati. And such a person goes to doomsday due to this. Derailing take place. That is why this ayukta becomes bound by the, activity itself. Saktaha. He is attached to the fruit of action, therefore nibadhyate. He getting firmly fettered or bound by the activity. He remains in a vicious circle of actions and fruits of action, actions and fruits of action. This becomes a, reverse of a karma yogi who is in a naishtiki shanti and approaches Brahma Nirvana, whereas a asaktaha, he becomes a kamakara, phalasakti, and becomes nibadhyana, becomes bound. So the tools are the same. Kayena, manasa, buddhya, indriya. The four instruments are same. The karma yogi uses the same instruments for getting freed from the attachment to the actions. Or the ayuktaha, the one who is not a karma yogi, he has a phalabheksha, phalasakti, and then he is binding towards the actions and karma, which becomes the agami karma, and then the cycle of karma yoga, the chakra, karma chakra keeps acting again. And he is never able to achieve to the shanti and achieve the atma shuddhi is not possible for such a person. And without atma shuddhi, knowledge doesn't arise, that jnana doesn't arise, and he doesn't know what is the shanti. Apnoti, shanti mapnoti, which a karma yogi gets. Relinquish the fruit, attain the ultimate peace. That is the nature of karma yogi. Clinging to the fruit, he becomes firmly grounded, the one who is not a karma yogi. So the path, the entire spiritual path, using the same instruments of the body, mind and intellect, etc. You can either become relinquished from the fruit of action and attain peace, or you can cling to the fruit of action and get bound by the karma bandha. The bhashya is yuktaha isharaya karmani karomi na mama phalaya ityevam samahitaha san karma phalam tyaktva parityajya shantim mokshakyam apnoti naishtigim nishtaya bhavam tattva shuddhi jnana prapti sarva karma sannyasa jnana nishta karma karmena iti vyapya sheshaha. So one who has disciplined, thus thinking I perform actions for Ishvara, not for my own result, having abandoned and given up the fruits of action, attains the peace called liberation, firm, steadfast, through the sequential purification of the mind, attainment of knowledge and renunciation of actions and establishment in the knowledge. This is implied in the continuance of the sentence where Sattva Shuddhi Jnana Prapti Sarva Karma Sannyasa Jnana Nishta Karmena Iti. Yastu Punaha Ayuktaha Asamahitaha Kamakarena Karma Karanam Karaha Karmya Kamaya and Kamasya Karaha Kamakaraha Tena Kamakarena Karma Prerita Ityeta Tartaha. One, on the other hand, one who is undisciplined, ayuktaha, uncomposed, acting under the impulse of desire, mama phalaya idam karomi karmaha ityevam phalam sattaha nibadyate. Thinking I perform the actions of the result, thus getting attached to the fruits of action becomes bound. Ataha tvam yuktaha bhava ityartaha. Therefore, O Arjuna, you become disciplined or become a karma yogi is the meaning. The 13th verse we will take it tomorrow. Sarva karmani manasa sanyastaste sukham vashi navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvanna karayan. That, having mentally renounced all actions effortlessly as a master of himself, he abides, and the 9-gated gate, the body, which is the navadvare pure, bodied ones acting all by, he thinks that I am not acting at all and causing no action at all. We'll do this tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you. Dhanyavad.
Yes, thank you very much, Binduji. I've opened the chat and hand raising for any follow-up questions or discussions. I'm also pasting the links in the chat. if you want to listen to the series of talks that had taken place earlier, starting from chapter 1. I've pasted the YouTube link. I'll be pasting the other links for the Apple podcast and Spotify where Binduji has archived all the talks. And for reading, there is a book that is published by Artemisia, the link of which will be pasted in the chat. It's available on Amazon.
Oh, how sad.
Namaste, Venkat.
I love listening to Venkat, but I have to go, and I just wanted to thank everyone who's here, and Prakash, the beautiful work you're doing, and it was very, very beautiful, Bindo. Everybody have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, Artemisia.
Good night.
Okay.
Yes,
Venkat.
Binduji, it was nice. Thanks of you. Now, while navigating us here, that Atma Shuddhi, that word you utilized, it is as same as Sattva Shuddhi.
Yes.
Okay. This Sangam Tektva, that attachment to the action
and fruit of action.
Fruit of action, both are prescribed.
Yes.
Look at, I think you also mentioned the individualism is also a swabhava of Brahman, because Brahman powers it.
Yes.
Now, the Gnani carries that prarabdha, karma, right? In the individual body, whatever been manifested in the role played in the society, all that configuration.
From the third party point of view, not from the Jnani's point of view.
But this is a Malina Tattva that existed and available also, through which the actions take place. That integration you talked about, right? That integration you talked about, how that integration will play out. Because the integration is forward integration with all the kaya, kayana, vacha, manasa, buddhya, all that.
Yes.
Are integrated.
Yes.
How the integration play out in case of a Gnani in this configuration.
You're talking about the Jnani or a Karma Yogi?
Gnani.
In the case of a Jnani, he is a Tattvit who has already seen the truth, attained the truth. So from his point of view, he has become a Akarta Abhokta. He is neither a doer nor an enjoyer. He sees them as Indriyani Indriyeshu Vartande. All the actions are Prakriti Gunas which are happening. Like, for example, a person who is aware that he is dreaming, he is in the dream, at the same time he is aware of the dream. He sees the dream activities as part of the dream, not as part of his reality. He sees them acting out in their dream, controlled by the dream effects, the dream world and the dream conditions. He is neither interested in the dream actions nor the fruits of action, because he is only a big sakshi or a witness to the dream. Same way, when the Jnani is knowing himself as Akarta and Abhokta, he is like a witness, a sakshi who sees the body, the mind, the intellect and the indriyas are nothing but projections of the awareness or the Atma or Brahman, and they are acting in the waking. No, he has no identification that I am the body, mind, intellect and who is acting. But he sees the activity of the body, mind, intellect going through the waking, and he is neither attached to that as I am the body or the doer of the body activities or the enjoyer of the fruits of action. That is why the Tebhyo Vilakshana Sakshi Chinmatroham Sadashiva, that mantra is very important, because Trishu Dhamasu Yad Bhogyam Bhokta Bhogastayad Bhavet. all the three states of awareness, waking, dream, and deep sleep. There is this enjoyer, the doer, and the enjoyment, act, fruits of action. All these things are there in waking, dream, and deep sleep. But the Sakshi, the Tattvavid has become a Sakshi. So he sees the waking, the dream, and the deep sleep as, Swabhava of the Brahman or Atma, and he is neither the projections, but he knows that it is the consciousness which I am, and he doesn't identify himself that body. That is why that Manobuddhi Hankara Chittani Naham, that sloka talks about the nature of a jnani who has integrated the kaya, mana, mind, intellect, and all those three things. Manobuddhi Hankara Chittani Naham. That it is not me. He doesn't identify them with that. That is the jnani's integration.
Non-identification is integration. I think that's a good word.
Yes.
Then in case of a karma yogi, it's another way where the integration is seen, through the yoga.
Yes.
Okay, it's another way.
Because he has still not identified himself as Atman or Brahman. But he knows that Atman, Brahman is the reality intellectually, and he identifies himself as a sadhaka, or one who is trying to abide in the Brahman. Intellectually, he knows Atman Brahman as the reality, or everything is perfect for him as far as this thing. But that anubhava has not come, that I am that consciousness. So until that, the ego is alive in such a person. In a jnani, the ego is dissolved. He doesn't have an identity that I am the individual. He sees I am the Atman or Brahman. Whereas a karma yogi has the individuality that I am the doer. Akartrutva, abhoktrutva has not happened in him. But at the same time, he knows that that is where I want to be in my reality. My reality is that, because he has done the vichara, the dridrishya viveka, that what is seen and cannot be the seer. I am able to see my body, I am able to see my mind, I am able to know my intellect, I am able to know my interaction between the indriyas and the objects. He is seeing all of them as the knower of these things. Yet at the same time, he has not yet shifted his identity from the individuality, ego-based person to the Tattvavid, where who sees that I am no more an individual, I am the Atman or Brahman. So the Karma Yogi is in the threshold, as I told you in the last time. He is in the threshold, he knows the reality, yet he is wanting to reach that shift to take place. Therefore, what he does is that he integrates, by doing this as a, Brahmani Adaya Sangam Tyekta. He knows that these are all happening in Brahman, and I am not going to be attached to the fruit of action. See, the attachment of the fruit and action is the one which keeps the individuality going. So when you don't have a fruit of action, where is the individual to even do the action, the activity per se? That is where the reality, the shift can help you to make the final abidance in the Atman or Brahman.
God, Banduji. I just made an attempt to differentiate between Chitta Shuddhi and Sattva Shuddhi. Chitta Shuddhi is more to do with surrendering the fruit of action. That, Kayana Vacha Manasana Indriya, Buddhyatmanava, Prakrite Swabhava, karomi yajit sakalam parasmai narayaneti samarpayami. That Ishvara Samarpana
Yes.
is
Yes.
to do with Chitta Shuddhi, and Sattva Shuddhi to do with Asanga, non-attachment itself. That Sangha itself is abundant. That is what is Sattva Shuddhi is reversing it. This is how I'm differentiating it, Viduji.
Yes, you're right.
Thanks, Viduji. This helps a lot.
Thank you, Venkat. So we'll continue tomorrow. The next verse.
Sure, Binduji. Can I ask one question? But this
Please.
is revisiting chapter 3, Binduji.
Yes.
Because he had used this term called, you beautifully paraphrased it as inner renunciation, outer participation.
Yes.
So, how does a practitioner of this resolve that inner outer? I just want you to just paraphrase it because you've said it in many ways. I just want to listen to how you would say it again.
Each time I will be saying it differently, but let me put it in today's in the context.
Sure.
See, when the Karma Yogi surrenders the fruits of action, his inner attitude is that I am not the doer. I am not going to take the fruits of action. I am surrendering it into Brahmani Adaya, means in the consciousness. So what he does is that his inner alignment is to the consciousness awareness as a activity which is going on. He is seeing the activity not as a participant, but as a natural event taking place, both as the identification to the individualized body and the activities of the body. Body means all the four which I have just listed in this today's lecture. So he is seeing the activity of the individual taking place. At the same time, he is not identifying with it. The easiest way to imagine that or explain that is the actor in a movie or a stage. He is doing all those activity of a particular character which is supposed to be doing the role of that individual. At the same time, his abidance internally is to the person who is doing the acting. Suppose if you are acting as a character in Othello or in the, or the Caesar, Julius Caesar, you may be acting as Julius Caesar, but at the same time, all your activities which is being required by the Julius Caesar role will be done perfectly by you. At the same time, your inner abidance is in Prakash. As Prakash, you will be abiding yourself all the time, yet executing the role of Julius Caesar for the purpose of the character to be played. So there is an inner abidance and external actions, which is of the role to be played. This is exactly how when we abide in Atman or Brahman and identify as Bindu or Prakash or Venkat or anybody in that matter, you will be able to know all the time that I am Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta Swabhava Atma. Not worried by events that is happening to the body, whether it's sickness or enjoyment or sleep or eating or sleeping, the identifying of the activities of the external thing will go on, but your identity as Atman or Brahman will also continue internally.
Yes, thank you, Bindoji. I think that is the place where the manana is so important, right?
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Prakash. We'll meet tomorrow.
Okay, Bindoji. Thanks everyone for coming. So our next session at room number 8, chapter 5 will be at 6:30 a.m. IST. So please come and join us at that time. If you want to listen to the replay, this replay is available in Clubhouse, and I think Bindoji will update it in a few hours into the YouTube channel, so at which point you can access it there. But like Bindoji always recommends, listening to the replay and coming to the room will give you a lot of continuity. And as always, that is the practice. Yes. So thank you very much, Bindoji. Over to you to close the room.
Thank you, Prakash. Thank you, Venkat. And thank you, Artemisia. And thank all of you for listening. We'll continue our journey tomorrow. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Have a nice day.